Good morning, class. So, in the previous classes, we were discussing the chapter that was life processes. I told you the different types of life processes, and the topics we have covered until now were the the basic differences between the living and the non-living. How can we tell that something is living? Then we talked about the nutrition in plants as well as nutrition in animals. We were discussing the nutrition in animals, and we have started nutrition in humans, but we haven't completed it. So before going on further with nutrition in humans and then afterwards respiration, let's first of all give a brief recap of what we have studied till now. So we studied the criteria for dividing or for deciding the living and the non-living. The main criteria that we decided was the movement. The movement of molecules was the major criteria. This you can see in the diagram. The movement in molecules that was not visible with the naked eyes, but it is constant till a human being or till a living being is alive. This molecular movement keeps on occurring, and that was the main criteria for deciding something as living. Then the different life processes we discussed it. The nutrition was the process of taking food by an organism and utilizing it. The nutrition was basically the absorption of the various nutrients that are required for our body for growth and repair. Then we uh, learned the definition of respiration. That was the process by which food is burned in the cells of the body with the help of oxygen. But the term oxygen cannot be used everywhere in the definition of respiration, as oxygen is only used in aerobic respiration, and respiration is of two types. I told you in the previous class, anaerobic and aerobic. So anaerobic is the respiration that do not involve any oxygen. It takes place without the involvement of oxygen. So then we talked about transportation. Transportation was also different in case of plants and animals. In plants, the transportation was majorly carried on by the xylem and phloem. Xylem was destined for the transportation of water, and phloem for the food. Then excretion. Food in case of plants mainly includes the nutrients that were absorbed by the roots. Then the excretion, that was the process of the elimination of any toxic substances or any waste products from our body to the outside. This was a different modes of nutrition. Then we divided it into two types: the autotrophic nutrition and the heterotrophic nutrition. What were the autotrophs? That were able to synthesize their own food, and the examples of these were the green plants. The green plants were utilizing chlorophyll as well as the sunlight for preparing food. Food was mainly in the form of glucose, so they used inorganic carbon source, that was carbon dioxide and water, and convert it into the organic food, that was glucose. And only green plants have the ability to prepare their own food, because if the plant is no more green, that means it has lost the chlorophyll pigment, and without the involvement of chlorophyll pigment, the food processing or the food formation is not possible by the plants. Then there were heterotrophs that were not able to synthesize their own food, and they were dependent on the autotrophs for their food. Then autotrophs was further divided on the basis of in what form they are utilizing energy. So the photoautotrophs and the chemoautotrophs. The photoautotrophs are the ones that utilize sunlight for preparing the food, as well as chemoautotrophs were those that utilizes chemical energy for preparing the food. Then heterotrophs were also divided into herbivores and carnivores. So the herbivores were those animals which eat only plants, that include goats and cows. And the carnivores were those that feed on flesh of other animals, for example, lion and vulture. Then moving on further, the different modes of nutrition, that was saprophytic, parasitic, as well as holozoic. So what was the holozoic? Holozoic was the kind of nutrition in which they ingest mostly solid food, and sometimes the liquid food was taken in. Like for example, human beings in an example of holozoic nutrition. That is, they mostly ingest the solid food, but liquid is utilized in very less amount. Solid food means the food from which they are obtaining energy for their basic uh, day-to-day work. Then saprotrophic was the nutrition that was they in which they absorb organic matter from dead and decaying matter. So trophic nutrition is a very important one, because they are basically the cleaners of the environment. For example, bacteria, they feed upon the dead and decaying matter and completely cleans it from the environment. Then the parasitic mode. In this, they derive their nutrition from other living plants. They were completely dependent on the other plants for the nutrition. If the host is the organism on which the parasites are feeding upon. So if the host dies, then either they choose another host, or if they are very much dependent on them, then they also lose their lives. Then we talked about the photosynthesis process. This was the discussion of how the food is being prepared by the autotrophs, how the green plants prepare their food. So in this we talked about how the synthesis of organic compounds like glucose was done by the simple inorganic molecules like carbon dioxide, water. Then we learned the equation for it, that I told you. Also, I told you the different types of reactions that were taking place. So mainly two types of reaction were involved in the process of photosynthesis, that were the light reaction and dark reaction. In the light reaction, ATP, NADPH2 and oxygen were produced, whereas in the dark reaction, carbon dioxide and water were converted into glucose. So light and dark reaction refers that in what conditions the reactions are occurring. That means if the reaction is occurring in direct presence of light, then it is light reaction. But dark reaction is not taking place in dark. It is also taking place in the light, but it is dependent on light reaction rather than direct source of sunlight. Then we talked about the exchange of gases, how the gaseous exchange took place by the process of stomata closure and opening. And this opening and closing of stomata regulates the process of photosynthesis. There were different sites of photosynthesis. In prokaryotes, photosynthesis occur in the laminar chromatophores. I showed you the diagrams of chromatophores in the previous class. Then we talked about the eukaryotes. In eukaryotes, photosynthesis occurs in the chloroplast. So this much we have done about. Then we also discussed the raw materials that were required for the process of photosynthesis. What were this? That were the chlorophyll, that is the basic criteria for photosynthesis to occur. Temperature, the optimum range was between 25 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius. And then the carbon dioxide was also a limiting factor that was very much important in the process of photosynthesis. Then we talked about the significance of photosynthesis. The main significance was it is the main source of food preparation on earth, and it also controls the atmospheric level of various gases. Then we came to nutrition. So the basic steps of nutrition were similar in all the animals, but first we discussed the nutrition in lower animals, so which includes amoeba. So we all know that there is a difference in cellular organization in unicellular as well as multicellular organisms. That means if a unicellular organism is there, then all of the work of it has to be done by the single cell itself. That's why there is no division of labor. Division of labor means various work is allotted to different sites. But as only one cell is present, there will be no such division. Whereas in the case of multicellular, they are different cells, and different cells perform different kinds of functions. So in amoeba, the nutrition is mostly holozoic. The process of obtaining food was by the process of phagocytosis. I told you what was phagocytosis. It was the engulfment of the food particle. The diagram is there. The food particle was engulfed by the pseudopodia, the false food that were created by the amoeba for the capturing of food. Then this food vacuole was prepared by the amoeba, and then complete ingestion of the food was done. I told you the difference between ingestion and egestion. Egestion matlab the expelling out, and ingestion means absorbing in something. This was a complete cycle of nutrition that was done in the lower animals. Example was taken, that was amoeba. Then we came to the nutrition in human beings. We all know that human body is a very complex, and it is a mixture of many different systems that are allotted to perform different functions. So digestive system is the one we are studying here. The various systems are excretory, nervous, cardiac, and nervous. So the basic thing which is included in the digestive system is the alimentary canal. So first we'll discuss what this is, the alimentary canal. So first we'll discuss what the alimentary canal is composed of. The first thing that is coming under the alimentary canal is mouth. A mouth is a small slit opening through which food is being ingested. That is mean that the food is being taken in by the mouth. Then the buccal cavity. Once the mouth is open, the lips are open, the food is inside the buccal cavity. Now the mouth opens into a chamber that is called the buccal cavity. The roof of it is a hard plate, and from there the tongue is hanging there. So that what is the purpose of tongue? The salivary glands are present there, and salivary glands are very much important as 30% of the digestion is done by the salivary glands. The enzymes that are secreted by the salivary glands are ptyalin and salivary amylase. Then we talked about the esophagus. The esophagus was the tube. It is also called as the food pipe, and it was the tube that connects the our mouth to the stomach. Yes, the stomach. The stomach is a large organ. It is J-shaped, and whenever the food from the esophagus reaches there, it expands. Expands means the glands present in that increases their area, and the muscular walls start to contract and relax. That helps the food in grinding. So the stomach also secretes the HCl. HCl is a very harmful or very much toxic acid, and it creates an acidic medium inside our stomach that helps in the digestion of many hard substances also. The pepsin is an enzyme which is present in its inactive form, and the pepsinogen is the active form of pepsin, and this pepsin is converted to pepsinogen in the presence of HCl. So main function of HCl is to convert pepsin into pepsinogen so that the further on digestion could occur. Then we come to the small intestine. The small intestine is the longest part of the alimentary canal. It secretes intestinal juice which contain many enzymes. So these are the various enzymes that are attributed to perform the digestion of various different nutrients that we are taking in. So peptones are for amino acids, maltose for glucose, sucrose for glucose and galactose, as well as for emulsified fats, fatty acids and glycerols are utilized. The liver, it is the largest gland, and it is mainly used for the emulsification of fat. Let's come to the large intestine. This is where we have to start from. So what is large intestine, and why I told you that small intestine is the longest? Then why we call this as large and that not as a large intestine? Because of the surface area it covers and because of its width. The large intestine is of a greater width as compared to the small intestine. That's why the term is called as a large intestine. And the small intestine coming from stomach opens into the large intestine. Then the food material is passed from the large intestine to the anus, and then it is divided into three parts that are cecum, colon, and rectum. Then there are different digestive glands. The digestive glands include salivary glands. These are mainly of three pairs, that is six salivary glands, and they are present in the mouth. The glands I'm taking separately because these are very important. The salivary gland helps in chemical digestion. They secrete enzyme called salivary amylase and ptyalin, and they are mainly responsible for the digestion of starch. What is used for digestion of which nutrient, we have to learn it separately because the enzymes are specific for particular nutrient or molecule. Then the gastric glands, these are present in stomach. They secrete hydrochloric acid protein digesting enzymes, and mucus. Mucus is the lining that is present in the stomach to protect our stomach from the HCl that is harmful or that is dangerous. Then liver, it is the largest gland, secretes bile into the small intestine. This bile contains bile juice and bile pigments. Bile is alkaline in nature and it is temporarily stored in the gallbladder, and it also helps in digestion of fats. Then comes the pancreas. Pancreas lies parallel to below the stomach. It secretes pancreatic juice into the small intestine. Pancreatic juice contains tyrosine and pancreatic amylase. The amylase is different when it comes from different source. So when it comes from the saliva, then it is the salivary amylase, and from pancreas it is called the pancreatic amylase. Then besides these two enzymes, pancreas secretes two hormones, that is insulin and glucagon. So it has both exocrine and endocrine functions. What are exocrine and endocrine? Exocrine are those which secretes their secretion outside the body, and endocrine are those which secrete the whatever they are secreting, they secrete them inside the body. So that is something we'll discuss later. Just this is the brief. Both bile and pancreatic juice are released into the duodenum by a common duct. Then this is all for the digestion of human beings. Now we come to the respiration. So first of all, discuss what is respiration. As I told you, as in the definition, that respiration is the mechanism or the sum total of the vital activities that are included in the metabolism. So vital activities refer to all the physiochemical activities of a body. Physiochemical means physical plus chemical activities. It has two aspects, anabolism and catabolism. So now what is anabolism? It includes metabolic process by which complex cellular compounds are synthesized from simpler compounds. Example, photosynthesis. In anabolism, something is being made, like in photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water in the presence of chlorophyll and sunlight combines together and form glucose. Whereas catabolism is something in which the a bigger molecule is breaking down into smaller one. In catabolism, it includes metabolic process by which larger molecules are broken down into smaller molecules. For example, respiration. Respiration is the one in which the molecules are being breaking down and the energy release is utilized by us for our day-to-day works. So the basic definition for the respiration now becomes the process by which assimilated food is oxidized and energy is released, and this energy is utilized by our body or body cells and molecules to perform various repairing work of our body and the maintenance of our body. This energy that is released is stored in the form of ATP molecules. ATP is the energy currency of the cell, and for further use, and some of the energy is also dissipated in the form of heat. So that is not usable energy. Only the ATP, its formation is the usable energy, and heat energy is lost, that is not used by us. So the process by which organisms obtain oxygen from environment and release carbon dioxide, it is completely the exchange or the complete reverse of photosynthesis, because it takes place in the presence of oxygen and the carbon dioxide is released. But in photosynthesis, the carbon dioxide was being utilized and oxygen was being released. So what is the difference between breathing and respiration? Breathing involves taking in oxygen and releasing out of the carbon dioxide. So it is a physical process, while respiration is a biochemical process, which along with breathing involves oxidation of food. Oxidation of food means breaking down of food into simpler molecules. Then breathing involves lungs, so it is an organ system level process, while the respiration, besides being an organ system level, also occurs at cellular level. Breathing itself does not release energy, while respiration results in the release of energy, which is then stored in the form of ATP. Then breathing is a part of respiration, while respiration is not a part of breathing, but it involves breathing. So respiration is a bigger aspect. If we talk about the bigger picture, then respiration comes, but breathing is something that comes under respiration. Then what are the different types of respiration? External respiration, that is the exchange of gases between an organism and its environment. Then internal. In internal respiration, the exchange of gases between tissue cells and extracellular environment. What is aerobic? Aerobic, when the oxidation of food takes place in the presence of molecular oxygen. Anaerobic respiration, when oxidation of food material does not require molecular oxygen or it occurs in the absence of molecular oxygen. So now respiration is divided into three parts: respiration in plants, respiration in animals. We'll discuss both of these separately. What happens in respiration in plants? In plants, exchange of gases takes place from leaves. What is the structure in leaves that helps in the respiration or the exchange of gases? That is the stomata. Then some amount of respiration also occurs by stems and roots. Major amount of respiration occurs by leaves, but some amount of respiration also takes place by the stems and roots. What is present in the stem and root that helps in respiration? The stems contains lenticels. The lentis that is called the lenticular respiration, and roots it is called the cuticular respiration. So transfer of respiratory gases from one part to another is very less in plants. Exchange of gases in plants occurs mainly by the process of simple diffusion. The respiration in roots. How the respiration in roots occurs? In young roots, the epidermal cells are extended to form root hair. The root hair remain in direct contact with the air present in between the soil particles. In the older roots, a protective layer of dead cells is present, which have tiny openings called lenticels. Then diffusion of oxygen takes place through these pores, and carbon dioxide release out through the same pores. So the pores present in the roots helps in the exchange of gases. That is also a type of respiration. Now, in the presence of oxygen, the glucose is being broken down into pyruvate and energy is released in the form of ATP. Whereas in the muscles, there is absence of oxygen. Because of no oxygen, the pyruvate is broken down into lactic acid, and here also energy is released. In muscle cells, there is no oxygen. That's why the pyruvate is taking the step of catabolism, that is breaking down, but it is not utilizing any oxygen. That's why it is a anaerobic respiration. Then in mitochondria, what happens? In mitochondria, there is presence of oxygen. Here the anaerobic respiration will not occur, and the aerobic, that is the main respiration, that will only occur, and it will break down into pyruvate will be broken down here into carbon dioxide and water, and energy will be released. Here in the yeast, there is no oxygen. That's why anaerobic respiration will occur and no aerobic respiration. The pyruvate will be changed into ethanol and carbon dioxide will be released along with the energy. So this is the basic pathway by which the different uh, places or different sites, because of the presence and absence of oxygen, different substrates are being produced and a different type of respiration is occurring, that is catabolism and anabolism. Now these are the basic uh, organs or the basic parts that are being utilized in the process of respiration, and these are referred to as the respiratory apparatus. That includes the nostrils. The nostrils are the starting point from where the oxygen is being taken in. Then nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, lungs, and the diaphragm. So all these we'll discuss, but in the later class. This is all for today.